that guy.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most interesting custom builds that I've ever done. This is a very interesting, very lightweight 16-inch 308. But before we get into the video, if you'd like to help me out personally, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, as that is free and does help us out quite a bit. Also, go ahead and comment your favorite lightweight accessories in the comments down below. Now, with all that out of the way, full disclosure, this is a build that I did for a specific customer. This is part of what I do with my company, Focus Shooting LLC. So keep in mind, while this isn't my build, I did get paid to put it together, and the very nice gentleman who purchased it allowed me to make this video. Now, starting off with the upper receiver. This is, of course, a DPMS pattern upper receiver. It's a Gen 1, so I believe it's technically the high pattern is what it's based around, if you will. This is a magnesium upper receiver from Rome. Now, the upper receiver itself weighs a whopping 6.8 ounces. Now, magnesium versus 70-75. Magnesium is worse in almost every way in terms of strength and durability. However, it is about 40% lighter. Now, as you'll see on the upper receiver, there is no forward assist. That's been completely deleted. The shell deflector and dust cover are polymer. Now, one issue I did have with the dust cover is the spring that they included, I'll probably swap this out before I end up shipping it, is not strong enough, so it kept coming off during firing, even though I replaced it a couple times. So the door right now doesn't have the spring because the spring is not actually long enough to properly engage on the upper receiver. Minorly obnoxious and something that I will fix before I ship it out. Now, another very interesting thing that Rome has done on their upper receiver is on the actual extension itself, where the barrel indexing pin would index on. They've actually cut out a lot more material, a much bigger square notch, and then they actually include a shim to go around your barrel indexing pin to give it a lot more contact area, a lot more surface area, so that you're much less likely to break that upper receiver extension via too much torque, improper installation, so on and so forth. It is a good idea because, again, magnesium is much lighter than aluminum, but it's also weaker and prone to be a little bit more fragile. Now, that's about it for the upper receiver itself. Again, it's very expensive. These come in at just under $300 for just the upper receiver by themselves, and it comes in at 6.8 ounces, and you are going to pay for that lightweight build. Now, moving on to the BCG itself. This is JP Enterprises LMOS, their large frame, reduced mass bolt carrier group. Basically, this one here specifically also has the high pressure bolt. I'm not sure if it's just a different geometry, but it is, again, optimized for those high pressure loads. They make two different versions of it, the standard pressure and then the high pressure optimized, which also has a slightly different geometry on the firing pin as well. Again, a very, very lightweight BCG for an AR10, I believe coming in at like 10.8 ounces for the carrier itself. And then with the bolt, it's going to be somewhere around the 13 to 14 range, which is only a couple ounces heavier than like your standard AR15 bolt. So as you can obviously tell, there has been a lot of material removed from the bolt. Now, JP does a very good job with their carriers. All of the machining is very good. The finish is basically perfect whatsoever. It cleans up extremely easy because this is after shooting it for several hundred rounds at this point. Now, something very interesting that they did, I would imagine intentionally, is it has by design a very, very inefficient gas seal on the gas rings. That is probably due to the fact that you are running a very lightweight carrier with a full power rifle round, and so to slow down the bolt, it does have a very inefficient gas seal, so there's very loose fitment between the bolt and the carrier, especially on the gas rings, to allow more of those gases to blow by versus actually just going straight onto the carrier. Because, of course, as you remove weight from any object and then apply the same amount of force to it, in this case a 308 cartridge, you are, of course, going to get increased bolt velocity, and they probably did the inefficient gas ring seal just to kind of slow that down a little bit. Now, on top of that, they also recommend using the JP Enterprises, their large frame AR10 buffer system, their silent capture system, if you will. Now, we didn't try that on the lower that I have. This is just one of my Aero M5 lowers with a standard 308 spring and carbine buffer, though I did recommend to the owner of this that he should pick that up at some point, as it will help to smooth out the recoil a little bit and take the edge off of what is a lightweight, snappy 308. Now, moving forward from there, we should talk about the barrel. This is the Faxon big gunner profile barrel, which comes in at just over 30 ounces. which is not heavy for a 16-inch mid-length AR10 barrel. It is a very light profile. It is not their pencil profile barrel. Their pencil profile barrel is 2 ounces lighter. So this does have a little bit more material. They say it's going to be better for higher round counts, more abuse, that sort of thing. And again, it's about only 2 ounces heavier than the pencil profile, though it is very similar, being very close in weight. Now, this is, of course, as I mentioned, a 16-inch mid-length gas 3-weight barrel with a 1-in-10 twist made out of 4150 chrome moly vanadium steel. Nitrided barrel. Barrel life on these, depending on how hard you're going to run it, is going to be somewhere between 5 and 15,000 rounds, very dependent on firing schedule and, of course, ammunition selection as well. Now, with this barrel, and basically every Faxon barrel that I've used, they're almost always a little bit overgassed from the factory. Now, as you can probably tell, we have a adjustable gas block on here from Riflespeed. Now, Riflespeed's gas blocks are very interesting. They use a D10 system, and they have a lot of different models, or not a lot of different models. They really just have 4 different models that have different lengths for the collar adjustment. This one here is the 3rd option, so they have one that's a little bit longer and then 2 shorter options as well. And this one here fits really well with the Handguard, which we'll get into in just a minute. So with the Riflespeed gas blocks, you get 12 different settings. Now, as I mentioned, with the Faxon barrel, it is a little bit overgassed from the factory. So we were all the way down on setting 4 and 3, depending on ammunition choices. And then if I was running a little bit of steel case, I would run that up to like setting 5. And keep in mind, while I was testing this upper receiver, I was using just standard 308 springs and buffers, so nothing special whatsoever. If you were using the JP system, you might need to bump those numbers up by 1 to achieve a similar sort of ejection pattern, though still I would believe that that would still take the edge off of the snap, because this is a fairly snappy gun. You're using a full power cartridge and reducing a lot of weight. Speaking of reducing a lot of weight, let's talk about the carbon fiber handguard. Now, personally, I am not a fan of carbon fiber handguards. I never have been, and I probably never will be. They generally have a little bit lower functionality. They require you to do some different things when it comes to the mounting system as well. You almost always have to time the barrel nut, because you can't use a wedge lock or a clamp or anything like that when it comes to the lockup. However, if you are looking to save weight, carbon fiber handguards are going to be the lightest out there. They tend to not get hot whatsoever, which is very nice, because everything else on this gun definitely does. But if you're looking to save weight and you have a deep pocketbook, which this guy does, you're going to go with a custom carbon fiber handguard. Now, this is a custom carbon fiber handguard from Isler Customs. The owner actually sent this out to me, so I did not pay for this. I have no idea how much this handguard costs. It was fairly easy to install. The barrel nut is 7075 aluminum, so lightweight there. Really, the only steel components on the build are, of course, going to be your bolt, your barrel, and your accoutrements. Everything else is some sort of lightweight composite. Now, the weight on the handguard itself with the barrel nut comes in at a whopping 8 ounces. So you're going to be saving anywhere from 4 to 8 ounces versus a aluminum handguard and a steel barrel nut. Again, you are shaving off some weight, and you are paying probably $100 per ounce of weight savings when you go with something like a carbon fiber handguard. Now, this one here is very much kind of like a competition build. You have 8-sided M-lock all the way around the handguard if you wanted to put on wraps or something like that. So again, for me personally, I'm not really a fan of carbon fiber on just about any component for a firearm, but if you're looking to save as much weight as possible, carbon fiber is going to be one of those options. Now, one of the last of the 2 components on the build that we need to talk about is going to be the muzzle device. This is, of course, the 30 caliber Sons of Liberty Gunworks Nox. Now, the 30 caliber version has 9 ports versus the standard 6 ports on the 5.56 version. It does definitely take the edge off of recoil. However, it's not going to act like a brake. It is still going to push you around quite a bit. Though as far as muzzle devices / suppressor hosts go, it is going to be very good. This gun is going to be suppressed at some point in the future. And it does, of course, have the Riflespeed adjustable gas block. That, combined with the JP Enterprises recoil system in the back end, should mean that this will be a very smooth shooting upper receiver while still being extremely lightweight in just about any circumstance: suppressed, unsuppressed, crappy ammunition, powerful ammunition, so on and so forth. Now, something that I did forget to mention earlier is actually the charging handle. This is the new Aero Precision Breach charging handles. Now, something that you might have noticed in the intro or some of the other footage that I've been rolling in is every now and again it would try and come back and smack me in the face, which really isn't something that I personally enjoy. Now, that could be something to do with the upper receiver, because again, this is a very interesting magnesium upper receiver. Something to do with this charging handle specifically, though there doesn't seem to be any issues. Again, just something that I did notice that the charging handle did try and come back a couple times and hit me in the face. Now, before we talk about shooting performance, reliability, accuracy, those sort of things, I should also mention that these optics are also the customer's optics as well. So this is the EOTech EXPS 3-0, which is an excellent optic for all of the things EOTech does. This basically is the best EOTech on the market, unless you just need some of the BDC dots that some of the other options have. And in the back, we have the Vortex 3X micro magnifier, which is one of the better small magnifiers on the market that is still very usable, has decent glass, has a very good mounting system, and in this case works very well with EOTech, though at some point the customer might be switching out to an LPVO, and for a 16-inch 308, generally speaking, I would recommend some sort of mid-range optic, so an LPVO or like a 2 to 12, 3 to 15, somewhere in that range, because again, with a 16-inch 308, you do have 1,000-yard capability if you really wanted to. Now, when we talk about weight, with the entire package, with optics and this specific lower with this very heavy stock in the back, the entire package comes in at 8.6 pounds. Now, you could easily get that down to 8.2, 8.3 pounds if you simply remove this stock, throw it away, and put on a lightweight stock. So you'd be in the low 8-pound range for a fully equipped AR10 with an adjustable gas block and everything else that you need. Now, at just over 8 pounds, this is going to be lighter than some naked 5.56 guns, and certainly lighter than a lot of fully set up AR-15s. Now, really on this build, there's only a couple areas where you could shave a little bit of weight. Of course, the optics, you can always go with a smaller, lighter optic, basically just a T2 and a skeleton mount, or a RMR and a skeleton mount, or something like that. But on the gas block, if it was just a standard gas block, you would shave off probably about 3 ounces, because of course the Riflespeed does have a lot of extra steel on it, and of course the muzzle device is also the fairly long Nox, which is also, you know, a couple ounces, so you could shave off an ounce by going to an A2 or something like that. But overall, the Riflespeed gas block does give you a lot of tunability. You have 12 settings, and if you're using a suppressor, crappy ammunition, you know, you're going to be using anywhere from say setting 7 all the way down to setting 2, again depending on your ammunition choice and of course your buffers and springs in the back end. Now, when we get into shooting dynamics of the gun, how does an 8-pound AR-10 shoot with full power 308? Well, the answer is it's pretty snappy. Now, as you can probably tell, it wasn't overly difficult to control. I did have to work very hard at it. Now, I'm not somebody who usually has a problem with recoil control. However, even myself would not consider this gun particularly pleasant to shoot. Again, even with the Nox, it is fairly snappy, fairly pushy. It is something that I have to work really hard if I want to shoot really fast. Now, the trigger that we're using here, this is just the Geissele G2S, which is the best Geissele trigger because it is the cheapest Geissele trigger. Now, again, it's not really terrible to shoot because it is nice with the Riflespeed gas block, the low mass carrier. All that sort of things definitely help, but it is still snappy because it is still, at the end of the day, an 8-pound AR-10 shooting full power 308. It's not the most pleasant thing to shoot. Again, not terrible, but it is something that is going to be snappier than a 10-pound, 11-pound AR-10 or something like that. And that's one of the main reasons why I would actually recommend the JP Enterprises recoil system in the back end, just to help take the edge off of that recoil, make it a little less pushy, a little less snappy, a little smoother overall. It'll be a more pleasant shooting gun, easier to control, so on and so forth. Now, getting into reliability, reliability was absolutely perfect unless I personally induced a malfunction by turning the gas down too low. Now, settings 2 and 1 are basically dedicated for suppressor use. On setting 2, it would eject the round but not pick up the next one. And on setting 1, it would basically not move the bolt whatsoever. It's not an off setting, but it's very close to being an off setting. So again, depending on your ammunition choice, buffer setup, and suppressor choice, that will dictate what setting you want to be on. You can always turn the gas down too low, and you can always open it up. On really setting 12 through 8, it wasn't necessarily bad, but you could definitely tell it was over gas. And then as you start to back it off, somewhere between setting 7 and setting 4 is going to be the sweet spot. again, depending on your specific ammunition choice and buffer and spring setup. Now, getting into accuracy, because I did do some accuracy testing with this upper receiver, keep in mind that I was just using the EOTech N3X magnifier at 50 yards, so maybe if I had more magnification, I could be a little bit more consistent with my point of aim and shrink the groups down just a little bit. Also, if I had more ammunition to test, I really only brought 2 match loads with me that day. Also, it should be noted that I did the accuracy testing on a cold gun. I shot the gun at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day is when I did the accuracy testing on the barrel. So the barrel was cold during accuracy testing. I did 2 different 5-round groups. One was 168 grain Hornady Black, which is kind of just a match load, if you will. 4 rounds, perfect in the same hole, sub-MOA group, and then 1 flyer. And then with the 168 grain Hornady Performance, their ELD, so another, again, match load from Hornady. Again, I got 4 rounds touching and then 1 flyer. So, were those flyers just me? Is that one of the properties of having a very lightweight barrel? Not the lightest 308 barrel on the market, but a very lightweight barrel? I'm not exactly sure. But that being said, if you take the 80% accuracy out of both of those groups, it was shooting right at 1 MOA or even sub MOA on the 168 grain Hornady Black. And again, with more magnification, different shooter, different day, could you shrink those groups down even more? Possibly. Last couple things to mention before I end the video is that all of these standard assembly processes were applied here. So we have a lapped upper receiver, bedded barrel, anti-seize on the threads of the upper receiver. Then we do a sequential torque down of the barrel nut from 25 to 35 to finally 50 foot-pounds. Very interesting on the barrel nut on here. It uses the SR25 wrench. So I actually had to pick up one of those to install the barrel nut. Other than that, we have blue Loctite applied to all of your 12 set screws on the handguard. The barrel is dimpled and pinned in place very nicely on the Riflespeed gas block. It's actually already completely cross-drilled for a pin, so it makes it very easy. It includes a very nice, very high-quality spiral roll pin in the container with the gas block, so all good there. So with all that out of the way, let me know what you guys think of this very lightweight, very interesting AR10 build. Let me know what you think of the individual components, if there's something that you would change on them or what you would do differently. Now, with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out. Okay. So on setting 12, all the way open. Setting 10. That was actually probably a little bit harder. Setting 8. Is about the same as that one. Setting 6. Still harsh. Setting 5. There you go. Starting to slow down a little bit. Setting 4. I thought honestly about the same. Setting 3. No cycle. No, it did cycle. So good. That felt really good. Now setting 2. This is absolutely not going to cycle this. Because that's barely coming out of there. Yeah. Big clinch. Setting 2. So setting 1 and 2. Setting 1, just for the heck of it, probably won't even really move the bolt all that much. Yeah. It did eject, but yeah, no cycle on that. Back up to 3 here. And let's see if we get full lock back on setting 3. Well, I missed, but we did get full lock back.